Louis Riddick of the Mothership, great contributor throughout the entire football season and, of course, in the offseason. ESPN NFL college football analyst, and you could tune in for NFL Draft Daily, 3 Eastern, weekdays on ESPN2, ESPN app, and also Disney Plus. All right, give me the most important drill at the Combine, and you as a former front office guy would say that will equate to success on Sundays.
Yeah, it's different for each position group. So when you're looking at obviously when you look at the 40, which is always the marquee event, it's different for the DBs as opposed to offensive linemen. You hear all the time offensive linemen, it's about 10-yard split. For DBs, like corners in particular, it's about 10-yard split. The 40 is more heavily weighted for corners because look, if you're not sub 4.5 in the 40 at corner, you're probably going to have to be like ridiculously proficient as far as your instincts and route recognition because you just need raw speed. You just do. Um, I think for like wide receivers, I love to watch the 3-cone drill and the 20-yard short shuttle because obviously a lot of their movements, lower body explosiveness, being able to change direction, move in a serpentine, that's all important. So like right now, when everybody's like up in arms about Carnell Tate's 40-yard time being, 4.51, 4.52, his agent saying it's lower, blah blah. Look, if we really judge wide receivers by 40s, Jerry Rice would have went undrafted. So I mean, it's just like, it's always different from position group to position group. I think across all position groups, everyone likes to see what a guy's vertical jump is because that is really just about raw physical explosion. And there were some dudes this year who was like, I mean, I was telling my son about some of these guys in their vertical jumps, and he's like 43 and a half inches from standing 2 point. I was like, yeah, man, these dudes are jumping out the gym. So it moves based on position, but I think 40-10 splits, 3-cone, those are the ones that you really want to kind of pay attention to from a measurement standpoint.
You know what caught my attention? A couple of guys had a better vertical than Vince Carter. And I go, I don't know what it means, but that's pretty damn impressive there. I don't know. I mean, there's certain positions where I could see where you would say, oh, this guy, if an edge rusher, somebody who can block field goals, maybe vertical comes in. But these guys are preparing for the Combine.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky part is, how good are they or how good will they be as football players? I still maintain what I see on tape on Saturday is now your medicals, the interview process, like those are important. Are you the height that they say, the weight you say? Other than that, I just don't. And teams do this, though, Louis. Every year, somebody's going to go, oh, my God, like Anthony Richardson. Somebody's going to go by what they saw this week in Indianapolis and change what they probably saw for 3 months in the college football season.
Yeah, and usually what that is then at this point in time is where a lot of other people come into the evaluation process, namely coaches, namely administrators, whether it be a team president, an owner, whoever it is. They haven't been out on the road since August, since September, October, November. They haven't been watching tape. They've been doing their own thing. I mean, coaches have been coaching their teams. So what winds up happening is sometimes they can come in and they can. Now, it's important for a general manager in particular to not let this happen, but they can kind of blow up all the work that's been done all season. And next thing you know, like everything is in chaos. When really you want to just keep the train on the tracks and keep it moving down the road. It's just another piece. It's confirmation a lot of times for what you've seen on tape.
Yeah.
Or it's the reason why you go back and maybe evaluate a little bit more, especially if a guy isn't as athletic in the testing numbers as you thought he looked on tape. Or if a guy's a lot more athletic looking than you thought he was on the tape, then you need to go back and research. Was he hurt during the season? What kind of scheme was he dealing with during the season? What kind of coaching was he getting during the season? So, you don't want to miss on somebody who maybe who dealt with an injury, dealt with a bad situation during the fall, but he is a great athlete. And quite honestly, he does have football instincts. And maybe you could wind up catching someone whose value is a little depressed and wind up really hitting on him once he gets to your place. It's just another data point, but I'm with you. There's no games being played right now. No guys who are catching passes, intercepting passes, rushing the passer. So let's not make crazy, wild changes on people's evaluations. Although there were some guys who really did confirm what you saw on tape. And the cool part about it, it's all the top players that were doing it. And they blew it up as far as their testing, which right now is going to make night one of the draft super, super exciting.
Louis Riddick of the Mothership, former NFL defensive back and pro personnel director with the Eagles, also was in the front office with Washington. You can see him on NFL Draft Daily at 3 Eastern, weekdays on ESPN2, ESPN app, and Disney+. It's weird to say, hey, is the best player, the most talented player, going to be taken number one overall? And the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
In basketball, if the Portland Trailblazers had taken the best player in the draft, they would have taken Michael Jordan. But
Right.
at the time, you had to have a big man. So you pass, Akeem goes one, then you got Sam Bowie. But the NFL, they do that as well. It's position. You're not going to
Yeah.
take Jeremiah Love number one, and he could be the best player in the draft, or Sonny
Yeah.
Styles, or whoever you want to throw in there. But
Yeah.
it's the person in front of you. Aside from quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
it's need. There could be a defensive back who's the best player in the draft. He ain't
Yeah.
going number one. But
Yeah.
so how do you justify when you take somebody, even if you know the guy who's going to go 4 picks later is the best player and could be a Hall of Famer?
Because it's always, well, there's two things. It's always like there's always a battle between best player available and best player available at the position that you do need, because you are actually trying to build a football team and you're not just collecting talent. So it's like let's just say, for instance, if somehow, some way, which it won't happen, let's just say Fernando Mendoza had slid down the board to number 9, and Kansas City's there on the board. They're not going to take Fernando Mendoza, even if he was the best player on the board at that time, because it just doesn't make sense, right? So you're always trying to balance those two.
Yeah, but take quarterback out of the equation.
True. Okay, true. So I think what winds up happening is there, and I remember being taught this a long time ago, you need to come up with a way in which you prioritize the positions in terms of importance, 1 through 22 on a football team. Obviously, okay, we'll take quarterback out at the top. So the other 21 positions, how do you prioritize them? So you know that, okay, when you're looking at your board, like you have typically, if you can picture a board, a physical board up in the draft room, you have all the positions across the top of the board horizontally, and then everybody stacked vertically within those positions. And then you have like a grading scale on the far left, and you kind of slot them in vertically across positions like this. So what winds up happening is, depending upon how you stack positions. So let's say that your top 5 positions are quarterback, pass rusher, defensive corner, offensive tackle, wide receiver. Let's see that those are your top 5 positions in that order. Most teams are going to have those 5 positions in some kind of order outside of quarterback. Okay. And you come up and you're up on you're on the clock, and say you're at pick 5, right? And you're looking across the board, and you have 3 guys at premium positions who are all literally, as you look horizontally across the board, on the same plane. You have them graded exactly the same. Now is when you go to how you prioritize building a football team.
Yeah.
Okay. And how you prioritize building a football team sometimes is like philosophically how you believe, teams should be built. There's obviously salary cap ramifications that are involved here. So, a guy who winds up, positions that carry a higher value in the NFL, when you're talking about, what the franchise tag would be, what the average salary per year would be, you want to kind of get those guys when they're younger on a rookie contract. You don't want to have to be in free agency having to find those kind of people. So you wind up prioritizing those. Number one, they have high positional value on a football team anyway, as far as how you play the game. And number two, that's usually going to come with a higher salary. So you want as much cheap, affordable labor as you can possibly get. So you're going to prioritize those guys higher. That's why running back, that's why it slides down the board. And that's why pass rushers, corners, offensive tackles are always going to go higher. And there may be guys who go higher, even if they are on your board. Jeremiah Love is sticking out. He's above everyone.
But but
you need an offensive tackle. You may take CeCe Mauigoa from Miami, even if he is a notch below Jeremiah Love, simply because of the positional value to your football team.
But if you take Jeremiah Love
Mm-hmm.
in the top 10,
Mm-hmm.
which he probably will,
Which he will, yeah.
So you're going to double down on that. You're going to have to pay him as a top 10 pick.
Yep.
And then if he works out, you're going to have to pay him again.
Yep.
Correct? Like if you draft him and he turns out to be great, then
Yeah.
you get to that fourth year. Well, now you're doubling down on that position. So now you get into that Zeke Elliott situation, and then you go, how much gas does he have left? Can I get 8 years out of Jeremiah Love? And that's why teams, I think, get nervous with that top 10 pick on a running back.
You know what's also interesting about that, though? See, I do think traditionally, like back in the 2000s, early 2010s, late 90s, yeah, you always thought about, how much runway can I get with a player? Can I get 2 contracts out of him? Can I get a decade? Can I get 10 years? You see how fast the league changes now? How much, I mean, coaches get 2, 3 years and they're blown up out of there. I do think the mentality has changed some. Meaning, look, we got to win now. Otherwise, we see how impatient owners get right now.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of that calculus has changed. Like, I don't know if you worry about that so much as you look with Jeremiah. I wouldn't be worried about that, about doubling down and trying to figure out, what am I going to do with his second contract? I just want to get through his first contract. I want to win some games. I want to be able to go worst to first, like some of these teams are doing. Because if I don't, I may be out of here. And the way in which he is able to help you win football games with his explosive playmaking ability, which is priority number one for every general manager and head coach right now.
But why don't the Jets take him at 2?
You know what? Probably because they're thinking this. Look, they're going to, I believe at some point here, I think they're going to franchise Breece Hall. They really do like Breece Hall, and Breece is a good player. And I just don't think that makes sense for them. But I think, look, could Tennessee wind up taking him? Could Arizona wind up taking him? Could the Giants at 5 for sure wind up taking him? I absolutely think so. I absolutely think that he may not get past the Giants at 5. Look, they saw what they gave up. And I understand why they thought they maybe needed to give this up, meaning let Saquon go. But they saw the difference that he can make. They saw the difference that he can make. Now, obviously, you need to make sure Saquon went to the perfect place with the perfect offensive line at that time. But Jeremiah is different. And I know for a fact, because I hear it all the time, it's what every head coach is after. We need guys who can win games on one play. It's too hard to try and go 10, 15 plays. And Jeremiah can do. I had a running back coach tell me this, Dan. He said, you know who he reminds me of? He goes, don't. I'm not saying this is a one-to-one comparison, but he moves with the ease and fluidity of Eric Dickerson.
Ooh.
That's what it reminds me of. And I haven't heard anybody in my entire time of scouting, since I got done playing, compare anybody to Eric Dickerson. Nobody. Not a single runner. That was pretty high praise. And I respect the hell out of this guy who told me that.
You're in love with Love.
I say, yeah, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
Hey.
Yeah, he's this special.
Yeah, but see, then I go back to the Jets. Why not have another playmaker?
Yeah.
Okay, I have Breece Hall. I get another playmaker. I want to put pressure on you on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Now deal with this. We'll incorporate these guys in the offense. If he's the second best, most valuable player, difference maker, I'd have a hard time passing him up.
The only problem is, like, they were like epically, historically bad on defense. Like, they have no playmakers on side. They gave all of them away.
We're just going to score more points. We don't have to score one more point, Lewis.
Yeah, well, then, I mean, what you're looking at is, can we address it somewhere later on down the line?
I know.
They're going to get a quarterback, too. So that's the other thing, too, Dan. I mean, what are they going to do at 16? What are they going to do? I mean, are they going to wind up taking a guy? I'm sitting here looking at my board. I'm going, hey, man, they got to get somebody. They got to get somebody to pull the trigger. I know they've got so many different things going on there. But yeah, Jeremiah's got a lot of people right now in personnel department sitting there going, should we? We saw what Jahmyr Gibbs did. We know what Bijan Robinson can do. We saw what Saquon can do when he's at the right spot. Are we set up to where we can get that kind of return on investment if he's ours? And I think this is the fun time of year. It's a fun time of year for us. I don't know how fun it is for the teams and who are actually trying to make these decisions. But there's some dudes, man. There's some guys right now who just showed over the past week, that the athletic component of the game is skyrocketing. These athletes are insanely, insanely talented and skilled and trained. And the game has never been more specialized and more athletic than it will be in 2026. That's for sure. Of
Great to talk to you as always.
course.
Thank you,
Thanks.
bud.
Alrighty.
Louis Riddick of the Mothership